Are you about to fall for the Trump account trap? Your kid's future and your wallet depend on this analysis? All right, folks, gather round the digital water cooler, because we need to talk about something critical for every parent out there, and for anyone who cares about the future of wealth in America. Every eligible newborn gets a $1,000 government contribution, and parents, grandparents, even employers can add up to $5,000 annually.
Wow.
The money grows tax-deferred, and beneficiaries can access it at 18 with some conditions. Sounds like a golden ticket, right? Hold your horses. Withdrawals from a 529 plan are not subject to state or federal taxes, provided the funds are used for qualified education expenses. When you contribute to a Trump account, your deposits don't qualify for a tax deduction. Compare that to some state 529 plans, where contributions can actually lead to state income tax deductions. You're giving up potential immediate tax savings for a deferred tax liability down the road. This is a fundamental flaw for many families. This is a massive, capital M massive, tax advantage that the new Trump accounts simply do not share. Not the more favorable capital gains rates you typically see in a taxable brokerage account. And the capital gains rate is 15%. That's a 7 percentage point difference on every dollar of gain. Over 18 years of compounding returns, that difference can amount to thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars. For most people, their ordinary income tax rate is higher than their capital gains tax rate. This means, in many scenarios, you'd be better off just putting your extra savings into a standard taxable brokerage account, where at least your gains would be subject to a potentially lower capital gains tax rate when you sell. Is that $1,000 initial boost worth sacrificing the far superior tax benefits and investment flexibility of a 529 if you have the means to contribute more? For a family that can contribute the maximum $5,000 annually, the tax inefficiencies could quickly dwarf the initial $1,000 benefit. Imagine saving for 18 years, seeing your money grow, and then having to pay income tax on those gains. This seems minor, but for those less familiar with tax filings, or who simply missed the memo, they could miss out entirely. Furthermore, a penalty of at least $500 if a parent mistakenly claims an account could deter some from participating, especially lower-income families who might be most sensitive to such a financial hit. As Lyserson notes, for most people, this account is going to be worse than what they could do in a taxable account. This kind of complexity creates barriers, not pathways to wealth building. Instead, it could be higher-income families who have already maxed out other tax-advantaged accounts and are looking for another place to stash money for their children, even if it comes with less favorable tax treatment and the potential to introduce more Americans to investing. The Trump account, as currently constructed, is far from a perfect solution. If you re a high-income earner who has exhausted all other tax-advantaged savings options and is looking for another long-term investment vehicle for your child, perhaps. Because in the world of wealth, every percentage point, every tax benefit matters. Your kid's future isn't a political slogan. It's a serious financial endeavor. For that, you need the sharpest tools in the shed. But for the vast majority of American families, especially those primarily focused on college savings, the data points squarely to the 529 plan as the far more financially savvy choice. Delivering potentially zero tax liability on withdrawals for qualified educational expenses, compared to the ordinary income tax rates of the Trump account, it's a mixed bag. Offering a small governmental boost but saddling it with tax disadvantages and investment restrictions that make it less appealing than established alternatives like the 529 for its most obvious use case: education. For these families, the Trump account becomes an additional tool, not necessarily a superior one. That's precisely what you're looking at with a Trump account. And where this new account truly stacks up against existing, well-established options like the beloved 529 plan, hey, he's putting money into one for his own children, hoping they access it at 50 or 60. This highlights a critical shift in perspective, from a college savings vehicle to a long-term retirement-like fund. Let's break down why this big, beautiful bill might not be as beautiful for your bottom line as it seems. This is where the shiny veneer of the Trump account starts to crack. There's a new kid on the block in the world of savings vehicles, fresh off the legislative press, and it's being pitched as a game changer: the Trump account for newborns. Washington Post just dropped an article on it, and while the headlines are buzzing with free money and future prosperity, as your favorite economic commentator, I'm here to tell you, dig deeper, because the devil, as always, is in the financial details. This isn't just about a $1,000 government contribution. It's about understanding the intricate tax implications, the true flexibility. First, the glittering promise, a new savings vehicle, somewhat akin to an individual retirement account, is now designated for U.S. citizens born between 2025 and 2028. Now, let's talk about the cold, hard numbers and the brutal reality of taxes. Tax tangle. Why 529 still reigns supreme for education financial planners? The folks whose job it is to make your money work for you are largely steering clients away from the Trump account for a reason: tax efficiency. 529s are the undisputed heavyweight champion for education savings. No tax deduction for your contributions. Greg Lyserson, a senior fellow at the Tax Law Center at NYU, hits the nail on the head. You have this very slight or minimal to non-existent tax benefit. The tax rate cliff. Here's another critical point Lyserson highlights. Withdrawals from Trump accounts will be taxed at ordinary income rates. For example, if your child at 18 is in the 22% income tax bracket flexibility, a double-edged sword proponents of the Trump account tout its flexibility beyond just education. Restricted investment options. The law mandates that Trump accounts track a U.S. stock index. While broad market exposure is generally a solid long-term strategy, it severely limits your investment choices. A 529 plan, in contrast, typically offers a wider range of investment options. From conservative bond funds to aggressive equity portfolios, allowing parents to tailor their risk profile as the child approaches college age. If the market tanks right before your kid turns 18, as Lyserson points out, the planning you were doing about how you were going to pay for college is totally messed up, because the money you thought would be there isn't. This all-stock mandate introduces significant volatility for a short to medium-term savings goal, like college tuition. Withdrawal restrictions and penalties. While the account aims for broader use, the initial plans for flexible spending categories were largely dropped. Now the rules after age 18 are the same as those of an individual retirement account, meaning withdrawals are taxed as income, plus a 10% penalty on withdrawals before age 59 and a half, unless for specific qualified uses. So, while you can use it for a first home or a new baby, you're essentially treating it like an IRA with a potential penalty if you touch it early for non-designated reasons. A 529, when used for qualified education expenses, has no such penalty. The $1,000 seed money, a head start or a head fake? The government's $1,000 initial contribution is certainly a nice gesture. And for families with limited disposable income, it's a genuine boost. Representative Blake Moore, a proponent, points out that most families don't have the disposable income to invest in a 529, and the new account's $1,000 from the government can benefit people at all income levels. Let's do the math. That $1,000 sees a modest 6% rate of return for 18 years, it would grow to approximately $2,854. If the stock market truly soars, it could be more. This is the miracle of compounded growth. The White House speaks of, but here's the critical caveat. This $1,000, while beneficial, might also incentivize parents to choose an inferior savings vehicle if they were not fully aware of the tax implications. Consider this. A 529 plan in 2025 allows a single person to contribute up to $19,000 a year, and married couples up to $38,000. That's 3.8 times to 7.6 times the annual contribution limit of the Trump account. If you contribute $5,000 annually to a Trump account for 18 years, assuming a 6% return, your child would have roughly $165,300. But after ordinary income taxes on the gains, that number will be significantly smaller. The 529. If used for qualified education expenses, that entire $165,300 would be tax-free upon withdrawal. The difference is staggering. The opt-in problem and penalty pitfalls the mechanism for accessing this. Free money also has a hurdle. Parents must opt in on their tax return. The economic realities. Who truly benefits? While the intent to invest in all children is commendable, the current design of the Trump account raises questions about equitable benefit. It implies that the primary beneficiaries might not be the low-income families who receive the initial $1,000 and struggle to contribute more. The bottom line? A step, but not a leap. Representative Blake Moore sees the long-term potential, arguing that the most beneficial thing, in my opinion, about these is that you're investing from birth into an IRA. While the idea of universal child savings accounts has bipartisan support, so should you put your money in a Trump account. Don't be swayed by the shiny new toy. Do your due diligence, crunch the numbers, and prioritize the tax-efficient growth that will truly secure your child's financial future.